Today we're going over the top 10 abandoned places in Missouri. There are hundreds if not thousands of abandoned places in Missouri, so make sure you like if you want to see a part 2. I must say this for legal reasons, but I do not recommend going to any of these places. Trespassing is illegal and you can be punished to the full extent of the law. With that being said, the first spot on our list is Imperial Brewery in Kansas City. Brewing in Kansas City exploded after the Civil War. In 1850, the city had a mere 6,000 residents and 2 breweries. In the ensuing decades, the city's population would double over and over again, with the beer making industry along for the ride. By 1910, local breweries provided beer to 348 saloons for a population of over 200,000. The Imperial Brewing Company began brewing its signature lagers in 1902. At the time, it could produce 50,000 barrels of beer per year. The site was well situated right next to new rail lines and near a cave that was cleared out and used for cold beer storage. At its peak, the facility was churning out more than 300,000 barrels per year. But trouble was also brewing. By 1881, neighboring Kansas had become a dry state, and pro-prohibition influences across the border in Missouri were growing. The passage of Prohibition swiftly created demand, and the Imperial Brewery building was repurposed into a flour mill. It remained in operation through the 1980s, producing 1,200 barrels of flour per day. The partially demolished building has now lain abandoned for several decades. Kansas City Workhouse in Kansas City. The towered stone fortress on Vine Street was originally built back in 1897 and was actually referred to as the Workhouse Castle. The jail put its inmates to work for the local public works, the very first of which being the creation of the jail itself, which was built by the first prisoners who mined the limestone building blocks right out of the ground. Prisoners in the jail tended to be petty offenders, such as beggars and drunks from around the city. The medieval European design of the fortress was not only considered trendy at the time, but it also gave the site an air of imposing authority. After a few decades in operation, the prison closed its doors for the first time, passing over to over a dozen new owners over the ensuing decades. It was not until 1972 that the castle was shuttered for the last time and it was abandoned. Wheatley Provident Hospital in Kansas City. It was the vision of Dr. John Edward Perry, an African-American doctor from Texas who sought to challenge inequality. In 1903, Perry moved to Kansas City. His first effort was a small 2-story sanitarium and nursing school on Vine Street. The hospital moved into a larger building and became an important institution in the heavily segregated city. Perry continued to work there, treating patients and training medical professionals, until his death in 1962. The hospital stayed open for a few more years, but the facilities were not equipped to serve the needs of the community. In 1972, Wheatley Provident closed down and its patients were moved to the newly built Martin Luther King Jr. Hospital, the Odd Fellows Home in Liberty. The Fraternal Order came first to Missouri in 1835, and by the end of the century, they built the Odd Fellows Home, a 240-acre complex. It was a form of health and life insurance, and as long as members had a good record, they could depend on the Odd Fellowship for help. The complex had its own farm and expected those who could to work. It also had its own hospital, an orphanage, school, nursing home, and a cemetery. The society, like other fraternal organizations, conducted secret rituals. One of the most important ones was the initiation. The key symbol in the ceremony was a skeleton, which served as a reminder of mortality. Now consisting of 4 buildings and a few small outbuildings, the Odd Fellows Home sits on 36 remaining acres and has been on the National Register of Historic Places since 1986. Cotton Belt Freight Depot in St. Louis. The Cotton Belt Freight Depot was a key link in a cotton trade route that ran through Texas, Arkansas, and Missouri. Built in 1911, the depot served the then booming cotton industry for decades, but eventually the site was shuttered and abandoned. The design of the structure incorporates sculpted terracotta elements and grand portal designs, making it seem a bit grander than a warehouse depot might normally be. The now abandoned building stands 5 stories high, but its most striking feature is its length and thinness. At around 750 feet long, the building is more of a wall than a building. Much of its vacant exterior is scrawled with graffiti, but the eastern side of the exterior is covered with a high bright migrant mural that was painted as part of a revitalization project centered on the site. Gardenway Motel in Villa Ridge. This Route 66 motel opened in 1945, but abruptly closed in 2014. Now it is just a sad shell of a building. The motel abruptly closed for undetermined reasons. Cementland in St. Louis. It was once the trash heap of the local industry. An abandoned and rundown former cement factory, the decrepit lot on Riverview Drive had become a common site for local construction crews to dump truckloads of excess dirt and rock. The old factory meant so little, no one cared or tried to reroute them. But when sculptor and visionary Bob Casilli looked at the site, he saw something more. He saw an art amusement park celebrating the history of cement production in St. Louis, filled with statues and sculptures and old machinery turned into fascinating attractions, and that's what he began to build in the space. Locations with formerly booming industries often find themselves with the opportunity to celebrate their cultural and economic history with an amusement park, exhibiting that glory. So he got a bulldozer and combined it with artistic ambition. Before long, he had created a castle of sorts out of the old factory, with a courtyard of sculpted creations made of cement, rock, metal, and antique machinery. Unfortunately, in 2011, Casilli tragically died when the bulldozer he was operating allegedly tipped over off an unstable ledge and rolled over, although his widow and several medical experts believe he was intentionally beaten to death. Celebration City in Branson. Celebration City, once known as Branson, USA, had a brief history compared to other amusement parks, opened for a mere decade before shuttering for good in 2008. Since its close, the once vibrant amusement park has sat empty and abandoned. During its heyday, Celebration City opened in the mid-afternoon, considerably later than its rivals, hoping to attract the evening crowds. However, that wasn't all that set Celebration City apart from the competition. Instead of an all-day pass, riders would purchase tickets to ride the rides. Despite the fireworks show that ended each evening and more than a dozen different rides, an assortment of games, and food, Celebration City just didn't take off and permanently shut down in 2008. Today's video is sponsored by Van Linker. Are you looking for new stylish sunglasses at a discounted price? Or maybe are you looking for a pair of glasses to protect your eyes from looking at a screen all day? These glasses have quite literally saved me hours of work time. As you can see, these glasses let through absolutely zero blue light, meaning your eyes are safe. These glasses allow me to look at a screen hours on end without my eyes hurting like crazy. Van Linker also has some super stylish glasses if you guys are trying to get your vibes on. Thank you to Van Linker for sponsoring this video. If you guys would like to check them out, they'll be the first link in the description. Indian Ridge Resort in Branson. Indian Ridge Resort held huge promise when its construction was announced in 2006. Plans for the resort were grand, and if followed, would cost more than $1.5 billion. Indian Ridge Resort would include a hotel, shops, a conference center, a water park, homes, condos, the latter of which was designed to be vacation homes. Some homes were built on land near Table Rock Lake, but construction quickly stopped when the recession arrived. What would follow would land people in jail for bank fraud and would leave Indian Ridge Resort abandoned. Some of the homes have been torn down, and an entrance to the development had already been constructed. In 2018, plans were released for a similar redevelopment to what would have been Indian Ridge Resort. The plans for the new development, tentatively known as the Ridge at Table Rock Lake, include homes and space for businesses and healthcare facilities. Yet, none of the proposed ideas have come to fruition. So guys, those are the top 10 abandoned places in Missouri. Make sure you like and subscribe if you want to see a part 2. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe for more. Peace.